Awesome. All right, and we'll move to our next slide, which is just some brief introductions of who we are. My name is Stephanie Hitchcock. For those of you I have not met, I am the OCM and training lead for the TSIS Modernization Project. I have been with this project since it started in March of 2022. With us today, facilitating our training is Elisha Jordan. If you attended sessions 1 or 2 or caverns, you have most likely had Elisha train you. So you are in for a real treat today. Also supporting us in our chat and polls is Dylan Hamoya. So feel free, if you have any questions throughout the day, you can reach out to any of us to ask that question. Let's just quickly go through our Zoom how-to, our reminders. The microphone is your controls your sound. If there is a line through that, that means you are muted. If you have a question or need to come off mute, just click it again. The red line indicates that you are not muted and we can hear you. If you want to join us on video, you can click that start video. The red line indicates that you are not on video and your camera is off. If there is not a red line, that means that your camera is on and we can see you. If you do not feel comfortable coming off mute to ask your question, please feel free to put your question in that chat button. Dylan and I will be monitoring that throughout today's training, as well as Elisha, as he's going through the demos. So go ahead, put your question in there, and let's go ahead and ask that. Then we have the reactions button. As you know, we definitely like to make sure that everyone is engaging with it and following along. So just use that reactions button as we go through today's training when prompted. And also, if you have a question, there is a virtual hand in there that you can raise. That virtual hand that will pop you to the top of our list, and we'll know that you have a question and we'll be able to call on you. And last, the end button. When this training is over, or if you need to exit at any time, just hit that end button and then confirm that you want to leave the course. Our agenda today, we'll spend the first few minutes going over introduction and Dollywood overview. Then we'll hop into our part 1 demo, followed by some knowledge checks. We'll take a quick 10-minute break, come back, hop into our part 2 demo, do some more knowledge checks. Then we have a little bit of time allotted for everybody to play the Dollywood trivia. We'll have some Q&A, and then we'll wrap up this morning's training session. Our housekeeping items, please make sure that you have a stable Wi-Fi connection and that you can see your screen. Since this functionality is not in TSIS right now, you won't be able to follow along. So the only way you're going to see these new features is by being able to see your screen when Elisha shares. Also, if you're not asking a question, please make sure that your sound is still put on mute. We don't want to pick up any background noise, as it can be a distraction for the facilitator and for your fellow classmates. Again, we strongly encourage that you ask those questions that you have, either by using the chat, raising your hand, or coming off mute. We have several people in here today, and if you have a question, chances are someone else has a question as well. And then lastly, in case of an emergency, please make sure you're putting your safety first. Go ahead, exit this course. No need to let us know. You can reach out to us at a later date, and we'll make sure that you receive all the information that you missed when you had to leave training. Okay, our first icebreaker poll. Would you rather hear good news or bad news first? Had you rather hear the good news first or the bad news first? I see lots of answers coming in. All right, Dylan, we can go ahead and close this one. It looks like the majority of y'all would like to hear the bad news first, and I will agree with you. I think let's start off bad and then we can end on a good note. So thank you for those of you who participated in that fun little icebreaker. All right, now let's talk about the TSIS modernization. Again, as you know, Bluebird started in June of 2022 with those 4 read-only screens: my caseload, case overview, participant overview, and the global search. Then we released Bill Street and Caverns, and those were introduced functionality for case intake, my task and calendar. I'm so sorry. Participant update, address, employment information, and then the match review. And then as we learned in both sessions 1 and 2 of Dollywood training, Dollywood's introducing those new diary tabs, a new menu, updated to participant overview, updates to participant overview, and then other participant-based tabs. Today, we're going to review that final group of system updates. So what is included in the Dollywood release? Well, as you can tell, we have covered the diary tabs, the menu, the My Task, calendar, and participant overview. And today, during our last session, we're going to cover the final functionality of system enhancements included in the Dollywood release. And at first, we're going to start with that case overview. And this case overview tab was actually introduced during the Bluebird release of TSYS modernization. And it provided child support professionals with a consolidated location to view all that important case information. With the Dollywood release, that select an action or screen feature is going to be added to that left-hand side, and it's going to provide users with the ability to quickly navigate to all the case-based tabs for that particular case ID. We're also going to discuss case construct and participant update. You know this as CMAU in TSYS 1.0. Case construct and participant update is going to be used to add new participants to cases within TSYS. Users can update that status of a participant on the case, including excluded and inactive status. But just remember that updating the status of a participant is not going to delete them from the TSYS system. Then we're going to touch on that release of information. This is previously known as RINF and CASA 5 in TSYS 1.0. It's the release of information and allows child support professionals to authorize a release of information to participants associated with that case. Then we're going to talk about sending case postcards. This is previously known as CASA 10 in TSYS 1.0. We're also going to touch on case history type known as CTPH in TSYS 1.0. And that is used to view the status as well as update the type for a case. We'll hit on 4A case history. That is previously known as IVAH in TSYS 1.0. We'll talk about contact database, and this tab is often used to manage the contacts, and it is known as CTAC in TSYS 1.0. We'll also discuss public assistance history, and that is known as PAHS in TSYS 1.0, and this tab is going to track the history of public assistance for that participant. And then lastly, we will touch on grant history, and that is known as GRNT in TSYS 1.0, and this is going to be used to view all of a custodial parent's grants within TSYS 2.0. All right, so let's hop into our part 1 demo, and we're going to cover case overview, case construct, and participant update, release of information, contact database, and send case postcards. Our learning objectives for part 1 will be to utilize the added case overview functionality, navigate to add and update case construct and participant update information, release of information, contact database information, and then lastly, learn how to send those case postcards in the new system. So with that being said, Elisha, let me pass it over to you and let you hop into the demo.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and good morning, everyone. Before we begin today's training, if I could just have someone go ahead and send me a Zoom reaction or an emoji of your choice, confirming that 1, you can hear me okay, and number 2, that you can also see the TSYS 2.0 application as well. Any type of reaction or Zoom will be perfect, and I see them coming in. Thank you so much for letting me also know in the chat. I appreciate y'all very much, so thank you. Well, welcome to the TSYS 2.0 Dollywood release training session number 3. Today, we're going to be exploring a lot of the new functionality, building upon what we've previously trained upon in the other sessions, and introducing some really exciting new tabs. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into it. And for today's training, we're going to start out in the My Task tab here. This is the homepage of TSYS 2.0. You'll know this actually as Morning Mail in TSYS 1.0. To access the Case Overview tab, a user can do so by either selecting a hyperlinked case ID from their My Caseload tab or utilizing the global search feature and more other options as well. For today's demonstration, I'm going to use the global search feature, and we're going to go ahead and type in our case ID. Now that I've typed it in, I can identify here the case. Selecting the hyperlinked case ID, I'm now opened the case overview for this specific case. Now, some new functionality included inside of the Dollywood release is the navigation on the left-hand side. Similar to the participant overview tab that we've trained on is the select an action or screen feature, where a user is able to navigate directly into this specific case's tabs here. So we could navigate directly into the case diary, case participants, or a host of other different types of screens listed here. Additionally, I can select a hyperlinked location here, such as case participants, and be navigated to that section within the case participant section of case overview. Additionally, I would like to call out, before we get into the functionality, some updates being made to case overview. Within case overview, we can see the case ID as well as the participants for this case. Newly added is this red flag you'll see located to the right of two of these participants. This is indicating that there is a family violence indicator on that specific participant. So now within case overview, we can both see a high level family violence indication as well as the red flags indicating which participants have family violence flags on them. Additionally, from case overview, what I'm now going to do is navigate to the case construct and participant update tab. A user can access this tab through one of the following three methods. Number one, you can scroll down and outside of the case overview tab, go to the case participant section as you saw me do and select view-update. Number two, you can also use the select an action or screen feature, which is located to the left in that section right here that I've highlighted now. Or number three, we can access it through the menu by clicking on case management and then selecting case construct and participant update. What I'll do is I'll use the select an action or screen feature here, and we'll select case participants to open up the case construct and participant update tab. Now in this tab, users can view existing participants as well as update some of that relative information. To do this, what you'll do is scroll down. Now, at first glance, we have our case card that you should be familiar with at this point, giving a user high-level information related to the case. And then here we have the existing case participants. If you'd like to make updates to the specific participant, what a user would do is select View-Update Details listed right here. Now, once selecting this, the Update Case Participant tab opens. A user can then enter in and update the information that they would like to input, such as maybe the middle name is Todd with two Ds here. As you can see, I've just added, and then you can simply select Save Details. Selecting Save Details allows the user to save those details. To add a new participant to a case, what a user can also do is simply select the Add New Participant button here. Selecting the Add New Participant, here we can see the participant details in the Add Case Participant tab opens. The first step is to actually search for a participant, selecting the Search for Participant link. Selecting this, we can now search for a participant by the social security number, the participant's last name and then first name, the participant's ID, or just the last name. So we'll search by last name, and for today's demonstration, we will select Search. Now here, a search will populate all of the different results that we are looking for. If we identify the appropriate contact, such as Aruna Test here, we can select this participant, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and select Add Selected Participant to add these details to this selected participant. If no results appear and a user would then like to create a new participant, after we've conducted this search, the Create New Participant is populated. Now from here, selecting this, it opens up the Add Case Participant tab again, And now we can input the information in these fields listed here. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll select worker confirmed. We will go ahead and input our first name. We'll say it's Gloria. Last name is Test. And then we can input any additional details, such as the gender, maybe the date of birth, if applicable. We can input the suffix, date of birth source, social security number source, and then we can input the status here. Are they active? Are they primary, excluded, or inactive? We'll go ahead and just say they are active. Relationship to the case. What are they in a relationship to the case? Are they an absentee parent or non-custodial parent? We could even indicate their relationship to the dependent, and then selecting save details. Selecting yes to confirm, what you will see is because the absentee parent is already existing on the case, it is giving me an error letting me know that it's already been selected. So for today's demonstration, what I'll do is we'll just go ahead and we will leave it as a dependent and then save the details and add it to the case. Now, all of this information that we've just inputted in selecting save details will be added to this case after batch. This follows the exact same functionality that you are familiar with in TSYS 1.0. So that is how a user is able to access case construct and participant update. I demonstrated how you could update levels of information related to this participant by selecting the view-update and being taken into the update case participant. We talked about how you can change the name. You can also change the status by simply changing the status and selecting save details. We went and added a new participant, searched for a participant. I showed you how we could select and add an existing participant and even create a new one. So with that being said, before we continue on to the next section for today's training, I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to pause and see if anyone has any questions related to anything that we have covered so far today. If you do, you can please feel free to use the chat. I am happy to do that and demonstrate or answer your questions in the chat. You can also come off of mute if you would like. I'm happy to answer those questions as well. Remember, you can ask a question at any point today. And the whole purpose for the training is to ensure that all of the questions and your questions are answered, as well as introducing this new functionality. I know I've said this before, but we understand that this is a lot of new information being told to you. Dollywood is the largest release to date in the TSYS 2.0 application. While it's exciting updates are here and we're excited to show this with you, we also want you to know that we're here to support you as well. So if you do have questions, you can ask at any time. But since I don't see any questions coming in at this moment, what I will go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and continue into the next section for today's training, which is the release of information section in tab. Now, this combines in TSYS what you would know in TSYS 1.0 as RINF and CASA 5. A user can select it through the case overview, the hyperlinked release of information section here to be brought directly into this section, and then simply select the view-update release of information. Now, selecting this will open the release of information tab. You can also navigate to the release of information through the menu or even the select an action or screen feature. Now, what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and scroll down and we're going to add in a new contact and update the release of information. The first step is to identify which participant you would like to update the details for. For today's demonstration, I will use the custodial parent. I'll then select show section, and scrolling down, we have the contact on release. For the contact on release here, we're going to go ahead and first attach a appropriate contact. To do that, for contact on release, we will select attach contact here. And then we're going to go ahead and scroll down and we can see suggested contacts as well as conduct a search for one. So for today's demonstration, we will conduct a search. Now this search feature here should look very familiar. We used this and actually demonstrated this in the previous training. So we're building upon that understanding and what we've already trained on. So this should look very familiar. Scrolling down, we could then identify the appropriate contact here, see what we're looking for. We can expand the items per page up to 100. As you can see, we're seeing 1 of 49 there. We could even create a new contact if we don't identify the appropriate one. But we're going to go ahead and say that we're looking and we want to add Betty Derrick, whose contact type is mother. And we're going to go ahead and select attach selected contact. Selecting that, we've now populated those results, and scrolling down, we have a note. In the TSYS 2.0 system, it's just saying, hey, are you sure this is the right person? If not, you can change the contact by selecting this change contact hyperlink. However, we know this is the correct contact, so we'll go ahead and select the appropriate type here, which is going to be mother. We can scroll or type in mother, and then the release method type is verbal only. We'll select our release form as authorization of release of information and selecting save details. Selecting save details will now print this document. Selecting local will provide a user a faster turnaround and print to the local office. Central will print to the central office location. So selecting print, we're going to go ahead and print it, and it has been requested. Now, I want to go ahead and bring this training full circle for you. In the very beginning, in session 1, we went over the new functionality related to case diary. I gave you a demonstration actually of case diary on how when we set up the release of information and send out that form, what it creates a new task in case diary. And case diary can act as a springboard, taking you into the appropriate tab to make sure that you're completing the task appropriately. Let's go ahead and actually demonstrate that today. So what I'm going to do is select the menu and open up the diaries tab here real quick. Selecting case diary, we're going to input this case ID, which is 611638, and then selecting inquire. Scrolling down here, we can now see there is a new tab, a new task here has been listed. What a user would do to complete this task is expand the results here. We can again see all of the various different information here, why it's important, what other screens and resources we can go to complete, and then we can select our close result. Now, there are a lot of different options that we can go ahead and select from here. As you can see, we can mark it and select received as our close result, add in a note if as applicable, and then we go ahead and select mark as complete. Now notice what just happened. I was automatically taken back into the release of information tab. For this scenario, time has passed. We want to mark this as a received release of information. The participant has received it. So with that being said, fast forwarding in time, we now are taken into the release of information automatically through case diary. Scrolling down here, we'll go ahead and select it as received. Select save details, and then we'll go ahead and go back into case diary, and I'll just reload this diary by selecting reload, and notice that we now have the information has been saved. We have marked this task as completed. So let's go back into release of information, and let's go ahead and send a revocation of the release of information for this contact here. Now we'll go ahead and see the release forms. We'll go ahead and select the form type. We'll select the revocation of the release of information, or C1005, selecting send, and then we'll again select print to print that off. Now that it's been sent, fast forwarding with time, we want to mark it as received. We can do so selecting this check mark here to mark it as received and selecting save details. The population will come up saying, are you sure you want to proceed? This will remove this person as a release of information here. Selecting remove, we've now removed it, and you can see there is no longer a contact associated with this custodial parent for the release of information. So at this point of the overview, I'm going to go ahead and pause again as we just demonstrated this cool functionality related to how case diary can automatically navigate you into the appropriate tab. We talked about release of information. We navigated there. We added in and sent out the release of information letter. We've also marked it as received, and then we revoked it as well. Now, one thing I want to note, a user would follow the exact same steps when it comes to sending out the attorney notification letter, and you would simply do that, but the contact type must be the attorney. So please keep that in mind. But the steps are the exact same of what we've just demonstrated. So with that being said, I'll pause again and see if there are any questions. As a reminder, you can use the chat at any time. Not only is myself looking at it, but we have the team as well, Stephanie and Dylan, looking in the chat to make sure no questions go unanswered. You can also come off of mute at any time. I'm happy to answer your questions at any point or even redemonstrate something. So with that being said, if you're following along with me today and you understand and you're still with me, can you go ahead and either send me a Zoom reaction, an emoji of your choice, just letting me know that you are with me today and that you're following along. It'll be super helpful, letting me know that everyone's still with me and we can go ahead and proceed forward. Well, I see a couple Zoom reactions coming in. I see some thumbs ups. I see some reactions. Please remember, I'm looking for your engagement to make sure that you're still following along with me today and that all of your questions are answered. I'm happy to re-demonstrate something, or if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them as well. But I don't see any questions coming in yet. So a reminder, you can ask at any time. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to navigate to, and we are going to be covering contact database. So I'm going to now navigate from this tab into the contact database. Now, remember something about contact database, that when you add a contact through contact database, you are simply adding this person to the database. You're not adding them to a particular participant or case. It's going directly into the TSYS database. So what we'll do now is I'm going to actually access contact database. I'm going to do this by navigating to the menu in the upper right-hand corner and then selecting the menu. Now, upon selecting the menu here, what I'm now going to do is I can go into various different places. I could go into areas such as locate here as one tab here and see contact database. I could use the search. I could also view all and navigate to contact database, as you can see on this left-hand column. Selecting contact database will now open the search contact database, where we can search for and or add a contact to the database. Now, to add a contact to the database, a user must first search for the contact. So this is just to make sure that we're not adding duplicates. So we can go ahead and make a search for the last name Derek. We've conducted our search. Now notice that I can search by a contact ID, institution type, or phone number. If Mark is the appropriate contact that we're looking for and we simply want to update some details, Mark, I can select that hyperlinked name and we're brought into the edit contact where I can update relevant information such as the contact types here, adding additional contact types. I can also update address information, first name, other details, and then simply selecting save contact, selecting yes to save those details. Now, let's go ahead and go back real quick. Let's go ahead and inquire on our search. We've inquired on our search and we've conducted the search. Now that we have conducted the search, if a user does not identify the appropriate contact and they deem it necessary to create a new contact, a user would go ahead and select the Create New Contact button. Selecting this opens the Create New Contact tab. Now, this is where a user would then input the appropriate contact information, such as the contact type. Now, when you create a new contact here, and we've created a new contact, we can indicate multiple different contact types here. We'll input the name here as LIV and then Derek as the last name. We could input in additional details such as the address line, the city that they live in, any of the relevant phone numbers, email, fax information. Once a user inputs all of the required information, as you can see with asterisks, and all of the information that they know is added, what they could then do is select the Create Contact button. Now, once we do that, we can select yes. Are you sure that you want to create a contact? There is a matching existing contact. Now, this is TSYS letting a user know that there is an existing contact with the same type of details, saying that would deem it as a duplicate contact. Always confirm and do your search and due diligence before you add in a new contact so that you don't create a duplicate. For today's demonstration, we know that we've done our due diligence. This is a different contact. We select yes. We've added in that contact, and we're now from the Create New Contact brought into the Edit Contact. Now that we've done that, that is how a user is able to navigate to the contact database and open the search contact database, where you'll first be required to conduct your search before you create a new contact. We went over how to update or edit information in the Edit Contact tab after conducting a search. We even created a new contact and demonstrated how to do that as well. So with that being said, what I am going to go ahead and do and go ahead and navigate to the next section for today's training, which is the Send Case Postcard section. Now, to do this, a user can either navigate through the menu, as I can demonstrate here, selecting View All, and we can see Send Case Postcards listed in this bottom of the right-hand column. Or what a user could do is go into the tab here, a case-based tab, and from any case-based tab, we can navigate to the Sending of Case Postcards tab by scrolling down and selecting Send Case or Send Postcards via the Select an Action or Screen feature. I could also select and type in Send, or type in the TSYS FastPath code here and 1.0 code and populate Send Case Postcards. Now that we've opened up the Send Case Postcards, let's demonstrate its functionality. At a high level, a user will continue to see this case card of what we'd like to call it, giving you high-level information related to this case. This should look very, very familiar. We've demonstrated this in training session number 1. In addition to this, we can scroll down and then we can select the party that we'd like to send these case postcard to. Selecting the custodial parent or non-custodial parent. For today's demonstration, we will select the custodial parent, and then we'll scroll down and we can input then the postcard options. We'll go ahead and select either please call, which would give us a reminder date to input, or you can select free form, and that'll allow you to type in free form. For today's demonstration, I will use please call. I'll input a reminder date here. So let's go ahead and select it as next month on the 14th, and then simply selecting submit. Selecting submit has now sent out that case postcard, as you can see here, and there is a task on case diary. I could then go into this case diary here. I'll scroll down and reload this information, and we can go ahead and see we have the contact here. This is that task. I could expand it, add an additional note or details if I would like to as well. And that's how the case postcard actually speaks directly to the case diary as well. So with that being said, before we proceed and we continue on to the next section for today's training, I want to take another moment to pause and see if anybody has any questions relating to the case postcards of what I've just demonstrated. Maybe you have a question related to contact database or something we have covered so far in today's training. Remember that if you're curious of something or if you would like something to be redemonstrated, someone else in the class may as well. And I'm happy to redemonstrate that for you. So if you do have any questions whatsoever, I would love to cover that. If you'd like me to redemonstrate something, I would love to do that as well. So with that being said, I'm going to take a moment to pause, allow you to ask your question if you have any. But if you're ready for the next section, which will include some knowledge checks testing you on what we've covered so far today, can you go ahead and send me an emoji or a reaction, letting me know that you're with me today and you're ready for the next section of today's training? If you do have a question, you can use the chat or also come off of mute, but I'll give it a moment to allow y'all to react or send some emojis, and then we'll make sure that we're not missing anything. I'm seeing some fun emojis coming in this morning. I love the creative bunch we have today, as well as some thumbs ups coming my way, reactions in the Zoom, and it seems like we don't have any additional questions coming in. With that being said, what I am now going to do is I'm going to stop sharing on my side. I'm going to pass it back over to Stephanie, where she is going to conduct some knowledge checks with us, and we'll continue with today's training. I will be in the chat this entire time. So if you do have a question, I'm happy to answer. But with that being said, I'll pass it back over to Stephanie, and we'll go ahead and I will let Stephanie continue with today's training. So Stephanie, back to you.
Thank you, Elisha. All right, y'all, let's just hop into our pulse check about what we just learned. So now that we have completed our part 1 demo, are you able to utilize the new case overview functionality, add and update case construct and participant update information in a case, add and or update release of information, add and update contact database information, and then send a case postcard? If you feel comfortable that you can do those things when the new system, when new functionality goes live, could you just give me one more thumbs up so that we can move on to our knowledge checks? Awesome. Very good. All right. Our first knowledge check for today. Which tab can a child support professional use to update a participant's name? Is it A, case construct and participant update, B, participant update, C, alias information, or D, case type history? Which tab can a child support professional use to update a participant's name? All right, we can go ahead and we can close this. And if you answered case construct and participant update, you are correct. Our next knowledge check, which tab does a child support professional use to send an authorization of release of information form? Is it A, communication log, B, contact database, C, release of information, or D, contacts for participant? Which tab does a child support professional use to send an authorization of release of information? All right, if you answered release of information, you are correct. You would use that release of information tab to use or send an authorization of release of information. All right, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. It is 8:39, so let's be back here at 8:50 and we'll jump right back into our part 2 demo. Be back at 8:50. All right, everybody, welcome back from break. I hope that you were able to refill your coffee and stretch your legs. Now we will hop back into our demo part 2, but before we do, we have another icebreaker. We would like to know, would you rather make or receive a phone call or text? Which one of these methods do you want somebody to reach out to you? Phone call or text? See lots of answers rolling in. Very good. Thank y'all for participating in that. And it appears that most everyone would prefer that somebody reach out to them by text. And I 100% agree with that. All right. We will hop back into our part 2 demo. We are going to discuss case type history for A, case type history, public assistance history, and then grant history. Our learning objectives for part 2 will be to navigate to, add and update case type history, also that information on a 4A case history, navigate to, add and update public assistance history information, and then navigate to and view additional grant history information through those pop-ups. So I'm going to hand it back to Elisha and let him share and then hop into that demo. Elisha?
Perfect. And thank you so much, Stephanie. Welcome back, everyone, to the second part of today's session. So before we begin and pick up where we left off in case overview, I want to take a moment to take a pause, make sure everyone can hear me okay, and that you can see the TSIS 2.0 application all right. If you could go ahead and let me know that you can see everything all right and you can hear me okay, that would be super helpful so we can begin today's training. And I see some Zoom reactions coming in, y'all in the chat as well. Thank you so much. We are now going to navigate from case overview into case type history. Now, there's multiple different ways that we can do this. Number one, I can actually use the select an action or screen feature located and selecting case type history. Or what I can do, and we'll demonstrate this for today's purposes, is select the menu, and then I actually have it favorited, and then selecting case type history. Selecting this will open up the case type history tab. Now, what we'll need to do is we'll need to input a case type here, ID. So we'll go ahead and input our case ID of 611638, and then we select inquire. We'll go ahead and see that we're active in this tab. So we'll just close this out for today's demonstration. And there we are. Case type history. So at a high level glance, we can see key details here, such as the case ID, case type, its status, the class, as well as the additional pieces of information that are at a high level. Additionally, we can also see the participants. Now, what users can also do is scroll down here. We can see if a signed application was received or not, depending on the type of case it is. And then we could see the history. Users can now actually filter by either type or status. Now, this is equivalent to type is known as the T line and status is known as the S line in CTPH on TSYS 1.0. So there you are able to filter by either T line or S line or type, and status will view all. In addition to that, what a user can also do is filter by the items per page. So if there are more than 20, you can view more, or you can flip through different pages to review that information as well. So now that we've kind of talked about this tab as a whole, I want to just make a little note here. Please keep in mind that updates to case type history are completed by administrators or supervisors, and most child support professionals will only be able to view this tab, and you will only view this tab. So it's important to note that users cannot also add a record if there is an existing active record of that in place. This follows the same exact functionality that you are familiar with in TSYS 1.0. So we'll go ahead and scroll up a little bit here and we'll close this active record. Now note that the start date here is the 1st, so we'll go ahead and select this hamburger menu located to the right of this record. Selecting this record, what we can do is select update, and we'll input the different pieces of information. We'll go ahead and actually just end and select our end date. We'll say for the 31st, and we'll go ahead and select submit. Now we have added and closed out this case type here. And what we can do now is actually delete it. Now you can't delete a currently active record. So now that it is not active and it has a close date listed, we can actually go ahead and just delete this by selecting delete, and that line now and that status is now deleted. A user can also create a new record. Now that we've actually deleted and closed that record, we'll scroll up to the top and select the add new record button. Here, we'll open up the add new record pop-up here. And what this does is this is allowing me to add a new record. We'll select our case type as A, and then we'll select our start date. Now notice if I select a start date of the 16th and select submit, I will get an error. This is following the same functionality that you're familiar with in TSYS 1.0, where the from date and beginning date needs to be for the 1st of the month. So we'll select January 1st, and then selecting submit, we can successfully add this type. And you can see it is now listed here as well. So that is how a user is able to close or mark an end date on a case type status there or a case type there that I've just done. In addition, a user is also able to, as we updated the date, we deleted that record by selecting delete, scrolled all the way up to the top, selected the add new record button, and added a new type here, a case type of A as active, and inputted that date. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to demonstrate when there is an X type case. So in order to do that, what I will actually need to do here is I'll need to populate a new case ID. So I'm going to scroll up to the top here where it says case ID, and we'll input a new case ID. I'm going to select 658250, and then I will select inquire. Now, you'll notice here that this information is now pulled up a new case, and we can see at a high level here that the information that we are looking to update is case type. It's listed here as an X. Scrolling down, we can see here that the signed application received for a non-4D case question has an option that can be selected. It is by default showing a no, but we can actually update this and change it from an X type and flip it to an N type case by selecting yes. Selecting yes and clicking update, we will now have a row that notes on the first of the next month, the type will be updated to N, and we can see this listed here with the first of these next month upcoming. And this concludes this case type history section. We've made updates, we've navigated to case type history, inquired on 2 different types of cases. We actually flipped a case from an X type to an N type case by selecting that button here where we were able to flip it. We were also able to update and add in a new case type as we have demonstrated as well. And as a reminder, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask, as well as keeping in mind that the updates being made to this tab are done by supervisors or administrators only, and most child support professionals will only be able to view this tab. What I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate into the next section for today's training, which is 4A case history. To navigate to this tab, I will use the menu. And as I do that, please remember that if you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at any time. So with that being said, let's go ahead and navigate to 4A case history. What I'm going to do is select the menu here again. I can go ahead and go to view all just for today's demonstration, and then I will see 4A case history. Selecting 4A case history now opens up the 4A case history tab, where I will then need to populate a 4A case ID here. So what I'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and input a case ID if we can get it to load here. There we go. And then selecting inquire, and we have now populated the 4A case history tab with the details. So at first glance, we'll see the participant it's associated with along with the participant ID. We'll scroll down and see if there's a different custodial parent that exists or not by seeing yes is listed. And then we can see the key details listed here, such as the 4D case ID, the case start date, end date, all of that relevant information here. Now, if what a user would like to do is if a user would like to go ahead and close out a record here, like this, one of these case type history or case records, apologize, we can do so by selecting this hamburger menu. But before I do this, and before I view, update, and even add a new 4A case history record, I want to make an additional note that please keep in mind, similar to case type history, updates that are made to 4A case history are done by administrators or supervisors, and most child support professionals will only view this tab. So with that in mind, to add a new record, what a user can do is scroll all the way up to the top or at the very bottom and select the add new button located there. So I'll do that for today's demonstration. We'll select the add new button, and we'll need a 4D case ID, and we'll need to input the start date. So what I'll do is I'll actually go ahead and select that. We'll do 611621. We'll input our case start date. We'll just select the 1st of January for today's demonstration, and then we select add new. And as you can see, we've added the new 4A case history record there. As you can see, I've highlighted. Now, in addition to this, if we would like to, and if a user would like to maybe update or add relevant information, you can select the hamburger menu located to the right of this record. What you're able to do is select update, and then you can update the information here, such as the case end date, and input the case end date, as well as the reason code here, and then selecting save and inputting that reason. Now that it has been updated, we've populated with the only field that you can, which is going to be a close date. Everything else was grayed out. If a user would like to delete the record, you would follow the previous steps by selecting this hamburger menu, which we'll go ahead and select, and then selecting this delete option here. Selecting delete will open the delete record pop-up here, and then you can simply select delete to delete this record. And that is the functionality related to 4A case history. What I've just demonstrated is the functionality related to 4A case history. We navigated in, we inputted our 4A case ID. We talked about what we see at a high level. We also talked about how we can add a new record and add a new 4A case history. We also updated a record, added a close date, and even deleted the record as well. So with that being said, before I proceed forward, I'm going to take another pause, see if there's any questions related to case type history, 4A case history, or any of that relevant information. And I see a question that does come in here. When you search for a 4A case, can you search with just the case number without the categorized sequence at the end of it, Leanne, an EBMS or an EBMS case number? This will follow the same functionality that you're familiar with in TSYS 1.0, Leanne. So you'll use that for a case ID. Let me know if that follows or if that answers your question. If not, let me know exactly what you're meaning, but I believe that does. It'll follow the same functionality in TSYS 1.0, and you'll still need to use that for a case ID. So let me know if that answers your question, but great question. If you do have any additional questions, love to talk about it, love to answer your questions. So we're looking at chat. I'm monitoring chat as well. If you can give me a thumbs up or just let me know, Leanne, that would be super, super helpful. Or you could also just come off mute too if you're looking for clarification.
The reason I'm asking the question is because EBMS does not have a category sequence for their case numbers. So that section that is beginning with ADCR01 would not be present. So can you search without that?
Let's test it. We'll select inquire again. No, you are unable to. You'll need that final sequence at the end. So once I re-inputted the ADCR01 and then select inquire, it'll populate. So this will follow that same functionality in TSYS 1.0, what's currently and the search method that you have there.
Okay, because EBMS doesn't have that, and that was my concern.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's honestly a really great concern. That's something what we'll do is our team, Dylan or Stephanie, will go and take a note of that. And in the future releases, as they continue to make updates to the TSYS application, I think that's a really great suggestion to see if there can be an ability to speak to each other for this specific tab. So great suggestion, Leanne. Really great. We'll take a note of that. Stephanie or Dylan, if you don't mind taking a note of that, we'll share it with the team as well. So thank you so much for that. That's a really great thought, Leanne. If you do have additional questions while we're still here, I'd love to answer any of your questions. If you don't, if you can go ahead, send me a Zoom reaction or a thumbs up or an emoji of your choice, letting me know that you are following along with today's training. That would be super, super helpful. Just letting me know that you're still with me, that you're following along, and we are good to continue on with today's training. So with that being said, if you could please send some reactions or some thumbs ups. This lets me know that you're still here, you're still following along, and we can continue with today's training. Alrighty, I see some thumbs ups coming in. Still waiting for a few more of you to let me know that you're still here. If you can do that, that would be super helpful. But what we're going to now do, and I see them coming in now, so thank you all so much. Let me know you're still here. I am going to navigate to a participants overview tab. Now I'm actually going to populate two different participant overview tabs for today's demonstration. So what I'm going to do is I'll type in here one participant, which I missed a single digit here. So if I can go back here and populate this one here. Selecting inquire, we're going to go to Bobby Keene's participant overview. And then I'm also going to conduct an additional search here, and I'll close out some of these other tabs so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to conduct an additional search, and I'm going to go into this participant here. And we'll select Bobby Keene as well. Now, the reason why I'm populating these two different ones is because the next section for today's training, I will be covering public assistance history and grant history. Now, I'm going to navigate to the public assistance history tab. To do this, I can either scroll down throughout the participant overview, expand the public assistance information, or I can select public assistance history from the select an action or screen feature. For today's demonstration, I'll use the select an action or screen feature and select public assistance history. Now here, the public assistance history tab opens, and a user can now search by the benefit type. You can search by 4E, non-4E, 4A, or Medicaid only. For today's demonstration, we'll conduct a search for the 4A benefit type, and we can see the results are listed here. Now, Now that I've demonstrated and we're talked about a little bit of the functionality and what we can do with public assistance history, I want to make an additional note. And again, this applies as the same as the other case type histories for a case history. Updates that are being made to public assistance history are done by and are only done by administrators or supervisors. So most child support professionals will only be able to view this tab. Now, to add a new public assistance record, what a user can do is a user can simply click the Add New button in this upper right-hand corner here. Once you select this Add New button here, you'll need to type in the various different pieces of information here. So we'll need a 4A case ID. So I'll go ahead and type in a 4A case ID. And then what we will do here is I will go ahead and select the relationship to the case. What is the relationship to the case? For today's demonstration, we could select multiple different options. I'll select a dependent. Then we'll select the recipient ID. I will go ahead and populate the recipient ID here. And then I'll select the dependent status as grant or non-grant. We'll select non-grant. And then the assignment date we'll select as the 10th. Participant start date we'll select as the 1st, and then we select add. Now notice when I select add here, it says, hey, you have an open record, please enter an end date. We can select an end date and then selecting add, and it says the 4A case is not related to the member ID. So when you're adding in details into the case here and you're looking to populate relevant pieces of information, it's important to note that if the system does not is having issues or if that you're populating improper pieces of information, the system will also let you know. And since I've actually already added the custodial parent and dependent onto this case, we can go ahead and note that, but these are the steps a user would take. And since I don't want to actually add in an additional public assistance record, those are the steps you would take, and error messages that are helpful tips on these steps and where you should go will also be applicable as well and teach you what you need to know. So now that I'm going to go and say yes, you can see here that we've already inputted the key pieces of information here. We have 2 children already listed with the status of grant. So if I would have changed my status, I could have easily added. However, I just wanted to demonstrate how you can do that. And since we already have a lot of information here, I didn't want to add an additional record. Now that we have done that, I want to also make a note that if you select on this right-hand side of a record, what a user can do is select update. Selecting update, you can change information, grant statuses, the assignment date, the participant's start date, and the participant's end date, and then simply selecting update to update that relevant information. Now that that's been done, what a user can also do is select delete to delete a record here, as you can see. And then you can also navigate to the 4A case history. If the status of the relationship to the case is anything other than custodial parent, your only option will be to navigate to the 4A case history. However, if a user has and the relationship to the case is custodial parent, a user is actually able to navigate directly into the grant history for that participant here by selecting the grant history hyperlink. So now that we've gone through the updates, I've shown you how you can add a new record, how a user is also able to update a record, delete a record, and make those updates. I'm going to now talk about a new piece of functionality that is being added with the Dollywood release. This is called the transfer records feature. Now you'll notice if I scroll down here to the very bottom, we have the transfer records button at the very bottom of this screen. Now, this is going to be added with the Dollywood release, and this is especially helpful when there is a duplicate participant and or the participant's public assistance history all needs to move over to that public assistance for history for the other participant. So in order to do that, I want to make a few notes before we demonstrate this, that as a user, and this is a really exciting update, that as a user, please make sure that before you make any transfer of records, that you first clean up the PAHS history before you make a move. And note that research should always first be done to deem and determine whether or not the move is necessary. To transfer the records, what a user will simply do is select the transfer records button. Now note that we are only transferring the records for this specific benefit type. Now that we can identify, we're transferring all of the 4A records. I will select the Transfer Records button listed here. Selecting the Transfer Records button, we can now search by either the participant ID, the participant's social security number, last name, or last and first name. Since we have the participant ID, I'll go ahead and search for our participant here as 1560512 and selecting search. Now, we have Bobby Keene, K-E-I-N, and this is Bobby Keene with a K-E-E-N. So in this case, it was just a duplicate participant that we deemed this is the appropriate participant to send and transfer the records to. We will then select the appropriate participant and then select Transfer Records. Selecting Transfer Records will give us an option here to confirm we want to transfer these records, a little speed bump to ensure that this is an appropriate action you are wanting to take. Selecting yes, notice all of those records are now completely gone and they are now transferred into Bobby Keene on this participant here. So that's why I opened up these two participants. Now that we're in Bobby Keene's, I'll navigate again to the participant history for this participant here. So public assistance history, selecting that, we can now select the 4A in conducting our search, and all of those records have now been transferred over. And that is how a user is able to use the new transfer records feature and button to transfer the records. One thing I want to note, though, that when you make updates to, and for case type history, this applies to public assistance history, for a case history, if there is a match that is associated and updates are attempted, a pop-up will appear asking a user to resolve the case or participant match before proceeding. So if you attempt to make updates and changes and that pop-up occurs, that is TSIS helping you as a user and making sure that all of the information is appropriate before you do that. Now, from public assistance history, as I mentioned, we could always select the pop-up here for grant history and navigate to the grant history section for this participant. What I'm actually going to be doing is we're going to now be going over the grant history, which is viewing the different types of grant history. What I will be doing is actually populating a new participant ID for us today that has more information that I believe will be more helpful throughout today's training. So I will go ahead and populate that new participant ID here and then select Inquire, and we'll open up our participant and then navigate directly into the grant history for this participant. Scrolling down, selecting grant history, we can now view the various different records for grant history, as you can see here. We can select on the right-hand side this little bubble here, and we can view grant children here. We can also view a grant per family unit. Additionally, we can see non-custodial parents information and grant information for them. And as well as we can view unmet need and view it only. So this is a view only tab. If a user does notice any updates or any information that would need to be updated, you would simply contact the TSIS help desk for assistance to confirm and update any information for the unmet need as well. So with that being said, what I'm now going to do is at this point of the demonstration and training, before we proceed to our knowledge checks for today's session and get ready to follow and conclude the rest of today's training, I want to pause and see if there are any questions related to any of the functionality we have covered so far today. I understand we have covered a lot of different tabs. We've demonstrated all the different case type history, 4A case history, public assistance history, and even grant history. We talked about new features, new functionality being added. So I want to take a moment and pause to see if anybody has any questions related to anything that we have covered so far today. If you do, please feel free to either come off of mute. You can also use the chat, letting me know your question, and I'm happy to answer. But if you don't have any questions, if you could do me one last time for a favor, send me an emoji of your choice to me, send me a Zoom reaction, letting me know that you are here, that you are following along before we pass it back over to Stephanie for some knowledge checks. And I see some of your thumbs ups coming in here. I see some Zoom reactions coming in. I don't see additional questions coming in as of yet. But with that being said, since I don't see questions coming in, know that I'm in the chat. If you have questions, I will answer them in the chat at any time, and you can ask at any point. But I will now stop sharing my screen. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Stephanie, and she's going to go ahead and conclude the rest of today's training. So with that being said, Stephanie, back to you.
Awesome. All right, let's just do a quick pulse check on our session 2 demo. And now that we've completed this section, are you able to add and update that case type history information, add and update information in a 4A case history, locate public assistance history, and add and update information? And then last, locate the grant history and view additional information through those pop-ups. If you do not feel like you can do those things, please stick around with Elisha and I after training. We're happy to go back through any of those topics and discuss them. Looks like Deanna has a question. Can you show where unmet need is again, please, Elisha?
I can certainly do that. Stephanie, do you mind if I take control over one more time?
Sure.
All righty. I will go ahead and go back into the thesis environment, which I'm still in. So Deanne, I am here in grant history, as you can see here. Now, I will be able to view grant history, and I can view unmet need by selecting this little radio bubble over on the right-hand side. Now, selecting this, you can see unmet need. Selecting unmet need, you're able to view this information. You cannot, as a user, no one will be able to make any updates to any of this information at all. You can simply view this. If you notice there's any information that's off or there needs to be some updates that are being made, what you can do is then contact the thesis help desk for assistance. But as a user, you're unable to make any of the updates to this. Just because of it, we're in the testing environment, it's allowing me to maybe change a fiscal month. But as a user, you won't be able to make any updates. It's a view only tab. So if that answers your question, let me know, Deanne. Great, got it, thank you, perfect. I'm so glad I was able to demonstrate that for you and show that to you and answer that question. So I'll stop sharing again and I'll pass it back over to Stephanie.
All right, let's go ahead and move into our part 2 knowledge checks. And we'll start with the first one. And that question is, which tab does a user access to update case type? Is it A, 4A case history, B, public assistance history, C, grant history, or D, case type history? Which tab does a user access to update case type? All right, we'll go ahead and we'll close this. And this looks like a unanimous answer. 100% of y'all that responded clicked case type history, and that is correct. You would go to the case type history tab to update the case type for a participant. Which tab does a child support professional use to view a participant's history based on benefit type, such as 4E and Medicaid only? Is it A, grant history, B, 4A case history, C, public assistance history, or D, case type history? Which tab does a child support professional use to view a participant's history based on benefit type, such as 4E and Medicaid only? And if you don't know this answer, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and give it your best shot, please. All right, and we'll go ahead and we'll end this poll. And if you answered public assistance history, you are correct. All right, I know this is the time that everybody's been waiting on. We're actually going to give y'all some time to play Dollywood Trivia. Dylan has put the link in the chat. So if you want to click on that link and go through the 10 questions, we'll give y'all a little bit of time. Once you're finished, if you could let us know in the chat how many stars you earned. That also lets us know that you're ready to move on. And once everybody has had a little bit of time, we'll go ahead and move to the next section of training. So go ahead, click that link, play Dollywood Trivia, and come back and let us know how many stars you earned. All right, so thank y'all for taking the time to play Dollywood Trivia. Great job. Y'all had some amazing scores come in. Just remember that at any point you can go back and play that again or review the web-based training whenever you need a refresher. So we'll move on and discuss our Dollywood training resources that are available to you. First, you have that participant guide that you were emailed yesterday. Hopefully you were able to use that and follow along during today's training and make some notes. Just make sure that you keep that. That's going to be a great reference for you once Dollywood goes live. The next is the DHS intranet page, and Dylan has put that link in the chat for you. If you don't already have that, I suggest that you bookmark it so that you can go there anytime and find a lot of great information that you need. We're going to have all of our communications on there. We'll have recorded trainings, our web-based trainings. There is a Change Champion directory. If you're not sure who the Change Champion is in your district, there's a directory on there that you can locate them. Also, we have the TSYS 2.0 user guide. That's going to provide step-by-step instruction for you on how to complete certain tasks in the new TSYS 2.0 system. That has not been sent out yet. That will be coming out fairly soon. So monitor your state email for that information. And then last, the Dollywood web-based training that we discussed. Again, you can find that on the intranet page, and you can go back and review that and refresh your memory at any time. Last, we have Dollywood office hours. These are those office hours that are available post go live. You can also find that information on the intranet site as well. It will have the schedule and the link where you can join that Zoom. And again, we'll also be sending out communications for that, so you can monitor your state email for that communication. These office hours will be available for anyone that needs additional support or one-on-one support. We can walk you through any additional training or assistance that you may need. All right, last thing that we ask of you is if you could please complete this post-training survey. Dylan has put that link in the chat, so you can click on that, or you can use your smartphone to take a picture of the QR code. If you could just give us some feedback on your training, it helps us inform future trainings. And then there are also some questions in there about the Dollywood release that we would love your feedback on. Once you've completed that, you are free to go. Thank you all for attending this morning. We appreciate that, and we look forward to seeing you for future releases. So y'all have a great day.